I will quickly move on to the inferential statistic part. And these are again very easy experiments. When I will discuss probability with you, I will go through it. But now I want to specifically focus on population and sample and central limit theorem. Okay. Okay. So before I start with population and sample, I want to make sure that we all know what a normal distribution looks like. A normal distribution model is actually a bell curve, right? So we don't have to go into the technical details now. You just need to understand it's actually a bell curve, right? Where much of the data is concentrated in the middle part or near to the mean, right? So it's actually a normal probability distribution, which we call normal distribution. For now, you understand this is a normal distribution. So it's actually a bell curve where a lot of the data is concentrated towards the mean. So mean is here 0, you can see. So a standard normal distribution has a mean of 0 and a standard deviation of 1. Just give me a second. Just quickly use my pen tab. Right. So a standard normal distribution basically has a mean of 1. Okay, I'm denoting mean as m. We can also denote by mu. Mu is equals to 1. And the standard deviation SD is, mu is equals to 0 and standard deviation is equals to 1. So this is a standard normal distribution. Normal distribution, right? So this is how a normal distribution looks like. We'll go through more technical details of it in the later slides. Now, if you see a normal distribution, it is very symmetric, right? It is very symmetric. If you draw a line in the middle, you can see it has a symmetry, right? Just like we have in front of the mirror. And it has only one single peak. So you see only one single peak and is centered around the mean. So a lot of this data is actually centered around this mean area. Okay, so this is how a normal distribution will look like. Right, so in normal distribution, we will understand something called the confidence interval as well. Right, so confidence interval is how much data is present in a particular interval, and we'll look into the percentages as well in the next slide. But for now, we have to understand that based on the Z score, we can calculate the confidence interval, CI. We will calculate this today with one of our case in the central limit theorem. Let's see here where we say that if the data lies within one standard deviation, when we say one standard deviation, it means this part, 1 and 1, one standard deviation. So in one standard deviation, you have 68% of the data. You have 68% of data in one standard deviation for a standard normal distribution. Next, if you have data within 2 standard deviation, you can see this 2 standard deviation. In this 2 standard deviation, you have 95% of your data. And within your 3 standard deviation, you have 99.7% data, right? So for example, if I take classes every day and I log in every day at 9 a.m. And my data somewhere looks like a standard normal distribution. If you calculate all the days where I have joined, it can be at times 9 or 901, right? Or 902, right? And so on. It might be 858 also. So if you plot all this data, it will basically look like a standard normal distribution. So if all my data is within a standard normal distribution, you can infer that I will be joining the class at 9 a.m. with 99.7 percent chance. For now, understand this. It is not actually right, but we will for now understand that if it is within 3 standard deviation, the 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 probability is 99.7%. Right? So we call it 68, 95, and 99.7%. Okay. So we'll come to this distribution calculation in the subsequent slides. But for now, we have to understand that we can do a lot of things with normal distribution, and how we can convert a normal distribution to a standard normal distribution. We'll also look into that. What is a z-score? Right? How we calculate z-score. So these are all not required right now, but when we calculate hypothesis testing, I'll make sure that you first understand how to calculate z-scores and all the different statistics before you jump into Python, because at times in interview they will ask you questions if you go for interview in say mu sigma, right? So they might ask you questions related to statistics, and it's better to spend half an hour to understand how it is calculated through hands, and then in Python you can write 2 lines of code, not a problem, but you will not be able to get the intuition behind it, right? So it's better we will go through the calculation in next class, where we will dedicate half an hour to a manual calculation. Okay. Now coming on to the population and sample part. So we all understand what is the population, what is the sample. Now the second branch of statistics is actually the inferential statistics. Right? In inferential statistics, we infer about the population based on the sample data. So here you have your sample data, and we basically use this sample data to infer about the entire population. Now, to understand this, let's look at this particular diagram here, right? In this diagram, the whole population, which is this bigger circle, right? We take out certain sample out of it. So this is the sample which we take out here. And if you look at the diagram here, we have a population, which is the bigger circle, and obviously we have taken out the sample from it. So why we do this? Because many a times we cannot study the entire population, right? You cannot look at the height of all the people in the country or in your state or even your district, right? So what can we do to simply study the height of a particular region, right? And what we can do is we can make a judgment that what is the average height of what's this or what's the standard deviation of the height in the country. So we can do that with the help of sample, right? So a sample is basically used to predict about the population, right? And whatever numbers you get from the sample is called statistic. Okay, please note this is statistic, okay, not statistics. So the characteristics or whatever numbers we get out from a sample is called statistic, not statistics. Okay, statistics is actually the branch of mathematics, right? And statistics is the statistic is the summary of the sample data. Okay, this is the summary of the sample data. Please note this. Okay, this is the summary of the sample data. So based on this statistic, you make inferences, right? We make inferences, or we draw inferences, and from that inference we actually draw conclusion about the entire population. And likewise, we have statistic for sample, we have parameter for population. So the properties of a population is defined by a parameter. Okay, many a times, as I said, we might not know what is parameter, right, in a population, but we know actually what is a statistic from a sample. Okay, and we will infer this. So if we take the example of height of some of the people in the sample, we can infer about the average height of the people in the country, which is the parameter. So from statistic, you can actually draw conclusion about the parameters. Any question you have? Right, this is very easy. So the only two things we need to understand, that from the summary of the sample is called statistic, and the summary of the population is called parameter, right? Now, to understand one more thing, is there are two major parameters we will look into. One is the mean, right? And the other is the standard deviation. The other is the standard deviation. So when we have a statistic, we make sure that we are dealing with the sample data and it is shown by X bar and S. So for a sample, we always showcase this by X bar and S, right? X bar is the mean and S is the standard deviation for a sample. Okay. When we talk about the parameter, we show this with mu, right? The mean is shown by mu and sigma is the population, standard deviation of the population. Okay, so these are some of the terms which we'll use, right? And you make sure that whenever I'm talking about X bar, it's actually the mean of the sample, and whenever I'm talking about mu, it's the mean of the population. Okay, I hope you understand. Now let's look into the next slide. Here I have some numbers and some measurement where I have the mean as 100. So you can see that I have the mean as 100 here and I have a standard deviation of 1. So this is for the population. If you see, I have drawn this over the population, right? So you have mean as 100 and standard deviation of 1 for your population. So this is actually mu and this is your sigma, right? Pardon me for the writing. So for example, if I give you some analogy, it will help you. Say for example, this 100 mean is the average length of the piece of cloth, right, which I am producing in my factory. Okay, and it has a standard deviation of 1, which is shown by the normal distribution here. So obviously we can say this is a normal distribution because this is symmetric. If I draw a line in between, you can see this is a symmetric graph, right, or symmetric plot. So you can say that this is a normal distribution. And from this normal this population, I have drawn certain samples, right? I went to my factory and I have drawn 4 cloths. One was having a length of 102, the other was 101 millimeter, the other was 99 millimeter, and the fourth one was 100, right? So what do I do to calculate the mean of the sample? So to calculate the mean of the sample, you can simply add all the 4s and divide it by 4, right? So your mean will come 105, which is actually X bar. I hope I'm making sense here. This is my X bar based on this mean.
Can you please repeat?
Yes. So I have the mean as 100 and standard deviation of 1 for my cloths in the factory. So in general, my factory produces cloths whose lengths are say 100 millimeter or centimeter, whatever it is, okay, or 100 meter, for example, right? And this 100 meter is actually what I sell to my clients, right? I send to my clients. But now one day I went to my factory and I pull out, say for example, 4 clothes, and the length of them are 101, 102, 101, 99, and 100, right? So if I want to find the mean of these 4 samples, what I can do, I can simply sum them up, right? 99 plus 100 and then divide it by 4. So this will basically be 100.5. Okay, so this is my X bar. Based on the mean, I can predict about the population. So I can predict about my population if I take this 4 data from the population as sample. I can predict that my mean is somewhere around 105. So population will also have a mean of 105. So my prediction about the population is done now. So it is 105. But actually, we know that this is 100 because it is very big data. Based on this sample, we can predict only 105. So since this is a very big data, so for example, every day I'm producing, say, for example, 10,000 clothes. Okay. And the length of the mean is 100 for 10,000. And here the mean is 100.5 for 4 items only, for only 4 items, right? So this is a very big data, but this sample size is very small, right? But then what do we need to do to find out the confidence interval? So now if I want to find the confidence in my data, right? So what should I do? So for now, understand that this is the formula for confidence interval, which is X bar plus minus Z alpha by 2 into sigma by root n. We'll come back to this when we look into central limit theorem, and you will understand this formula. So what it does is it basically adds your mean with a Z score. Okay, it's Z score which you will get, and thus sigma by root n, which we call it standard error. Standard error. Okay, we call it standard error. So this portion is called standard error. Be very attentive here. Why this is called standard error, we'll come to this again, right? So for now, understand that the confidence interval is 100.5 plus minus 1. After the calculation, we calculated that this particular part comes out to be plus minus 1. Don't worry about it. We will come back to this with the calculation. Okay, for now, this is 1. Okay, so your confidence interval is 100.5 to plus minus 1. So you can say that the length of my cloth can be between 99.5 and 101.5. Okay, so this is my confidence level based on this sample. Okay.
What is it actually conveying, that number, confidence interval? Like,
okay, so for example, if you are the manager of a exit poll company.
okay.
Right? So what you do is you basically take out the sample from the individual population, entire population of say a particular state, and you infer that based on 30%, 30,000 sample of people from random pockets, I have analyzed that the party XYZ, right, is going to get 39% vote, and ABC party is going to get 27% vote. So I will ask you the question, how confident you are with your 39%. So if you say if I have taken 100% of the data for the entire state, then only you can say that, okay, yes, 39% people are going to vote for XYZ. But now you have only taken, say, for example, 30K votes, 30K, the interview of 30K people. And based on that, you find some standard error. So what can be the standard error when we look into this small number of sample space, right? And from there, you can say that it is say plus minus 3%. So you can say that if once the results come out, you will see that the ruling party will get somewhere around 36% to 42% of vote. So this is actually your confidence interval. So this is the interval in which you can say that my data will lie.
Okay. Okay, so the statistic which we derived, we are putting a confidence on it. How true are we? Is it? Okay.
Yes, that's right. And we will calculate this in the subsequent slides. Okay. For now, this is only to make sure that you understand the basic concept. What is confidence interval, right?
Okay. Yeah.
How to calculate, what is the standard error. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, any questions? I will again reiterate again. So the formula of the confidence interval which we have is here. right? X bar plus minus Z alpha by 2 into sigma by root under of n. So if I say what is sigma here, you already know what is sigma here. Sigma is basically the standard deviation. So for now, you can understand that X bar plus minus Z alpha by 2 by root under of n, right? This is your formula. From here, you know sigma X bar, which is 100.5 plus minus Z alpha by 2. You don't know Z alpha by 2, but you know sigma. Sigma is 1, and your root n is the number of samples you are drawing, right? So this is root under of 4. So now you can say that this will be 100.5 plus minus Z alpha by 2 divided by 2, right? And this, after looking into the Z score chart, we concluded that the entire value is going to be 1. We'll see how to look into the Z scores. Okay. So whatever formula this is, we will use this formula and we will come out with a confidence interval. For now, we can say that this is 100.5 plus minus 1. It is with 95% confidence interval, because when we are taking sample, you cannot be 100% sure, right? So when we look into the Z score chart, okay, I think I have listed somewhere. Yes, this is actually a score chart. I will show this again in the subsequent slide. So this is a type of chart which we have, and from there we have looked into the 95% interval, and it has given us some number, and based on number we have put the number here, and it gives us a value of 1. Okay, you can obviously infer that the Z score was 2 here, so that's why we are getting 2 by 2, which is 1. Okay, so this is how we calculate the confidence interval. Any question?
So here we are assuming that we have sigma, which is a standard deviation of the population, right?
Right.
But in the real world, I don't think that if you give example of the exit poll, I don't think we can go and calculate standard deviation of the entire population. So how do we come to a confidence interval when we have only data only on the sample?
Yeah, that's a good question. But for now, you have to understand that we are taking probably the scenario of a factory here. So this is something which we need to calculate when we look into in-depth calculation of inferential statistics. There are a lot of techniques from where you can get the standard deviation. At times, these standard deviation are derived from previous conclusions, and we have one example where we look into how to infer all this, but these are very advanced statistics concepts which we don't require in data science for now. Okay, but if you want to understand it, we can have a separate session where we will go through the standard deviations and how it can conclude. Okay.
Okay.
So for now, just focus on this part, which is sigma by root n, which is the standard error of the means. Now, why we are talking about all this? Because of central limit theorem. And when we go there, we will talk about this term, which is called the standard error, right? Now, just to keep in mind, this is one application of central limit theorem that we are learning right now, but we'll go through it again in the central limit theorem. In the next class, we will look into the hypothesis testing part, which is actually the second application of central limit theorem. We will talk about hypothesis testing as we go further into this course. And what we do in hypothesis testing is we draw some samples, right? And these are exactly the same sample that we are talking about in this, in here. Okay. Okay. So those who want to know again what we have done here. So this was a machine which was supposed to produce item worth say 100 centimeter, right? With a standard deviation of 1. Okay. This was the machine that was ongoing. I just picked 4 samples out of it, and based on that, I want to judge whether the machine has shifted or the machine setting needs to be changed, right? I calculate the Z value based on what I can say is from a chart. Okay. And when you look into hypothesis testing, you will understand whether to accept this hypothesis or reject this hypothesis. Okay. But for now, we have to understand that we have drawn the data from population, inferred something about it, right? And we can make a conclusion that whether this machine needs to be tuned or any settings needs to be changed or maintenance needs to be done, right? As we will talk about this concept, we will go further. Okay, don't worry about this. You just need to focus about this small thing here. Okay, nothing else. So we will look into the central limit theorem now. And if you have any question about this, please let me know. Anything in particular you are not able to understand? Or let's go into the central limit theorem. You will be able to understand this, or we will revisit this again. Now, there are 2 key aspects in a central limit theorem. Let's talk about the first one. So in the first one, now what we can say is for almost all population, the sampling distribution of the mean can be approximately close to the normal distribution provided the sample size is sufficiently large. Say for example, if I have a population and if you draw the graph, it looks something like this. Okay. It looks something like this. You can see the graph is not a normal distribution, right? But you can, if we take out data at random, say for example, if I take out say 10 data at a time, okay? Say for example, 2, 5, 9, 6, and so on, 10 data, okay? And if you find the mean, and we put it over here, okay? So in that case, we will take out 10 random data every time 10 random data, and we plot this over a graph. This graph will look like a normal distribution with the mean. So let's understand this with okay. Say for example, this is my population, and my population graph looks like this. Okay, this is the height of the population. Okay. Now from here, what we can do is we can draw in samples. Okay, so you first draw, for example, 4 samples. It is 10, 12, 14, and say 14, right? And you create a graph and plot the mean here. So you got the mean. What will the mean? 22 and 28, 40, 50. So it will be 12.5, right? So you plot this 12.5 here. Again, you have drawn say 4 samples, and it again comes to be say 10, 13, 12, 19. Okay, and the mean, whatever the mean is, you will plot this again here. And likewise, you will do this for n number of times. Okay, say for example, you have done this for 50 number of times. Okay, and one is what you will see that the data is normally distributed. Okay, it is normally distributed. So this is the first theorem of first aspect of the central limit theorem, that if you calculate its mean and draw it over and draw it over a graph, what you see is the mean of these samples are normally distributed. Normally distributed. Right? So all these data is actually X bar. You have to understand that sample has a mean of X bar. So all these X bar. So you calculated say X1 bar, then X2 bar. So all of these will be drawn over a plot and it will be normally distributed. So that is what we are saying here, that any data set that is randomly sampled from a population repeatedly for a couple of times, okay, distribution of the sample mean will be approximately normal if the sample size is large regardless of its original distribution. Okay, whatever distribution it is, it doesn't matter. Okay, if you take out random sample from the population, okay, and try to create, okay, or distribute this over a graph, what you will see is they are normally distributed. Okay, any question?
So is it perfectly normally distributed every time, or
No,
there is some
no,
deviation?
no, it is not perfectly distributed every time. We will understand this again in the next slide, that as and when your number of items increases, okay, so for example, in this, in here I have taken only 4 items, right, and 50 times, this is times. So as and when your uh, number of items increases for each sample, right, the distribution will actually become more and more normal. Okay, so for example, with 4 you have a distribution like this. If you take 10 items, it will look better than this. Okay, something like this. If you take 50, it will be something more better than this. Okay, it will become more steep. Okay, we will look into this in the subsequent slide, but for now understand that as and when your randomness increases or number of data points increases in each sample, your graph here will be also getting changed. Okay, so what central limit theorem says is that this sample mean distribution will be normally distributed even if your original distribution is not normally distributed. So this was not normally distributed. This is your population, right? When you take sample out of it and draw, okay, the distribution of the mean, not the data, of the mean, what you get is a normal distribution. Okay, any questions? So this is written over here. So if someone asks you what is central limit theorem, you can give the first pointer here. So this is your first aspect. Now coming to the second aspect of central limit theorem. Okay, let's say that the particular population has a so your population has a mean of say mu, right, and the variance is say sigma square. Okay, this is your mean, this is your variance, and obviously the standard deviation will be sigma, right? This is for population. So this is the original distribution which we have mu as the mean, sigma square as the variance. Okay, now when we take n samples from this, each time we draw in number of samples, right? It could be 2. So for example, what I mentioned here, it could be 2. So you can draw only 2 items from here, right? You can draw 5 items from here. You can draw 20 items from here. Okay, and we said that the mean will be normally distributed. Okay, but we have to understand one more thing is, as and when the number of sample size increases, so here the sample size is 50, Here it is 25. Here it is 10. As and when the number of sample size increases, okay, the graph will become more and more steeper. Okay, so here you can see that with sample size 10, the graph is not that steeper. With 25, it becomes a little steeper. And with more number of sample size, it becomes more steeper. So if you take more than 50, like 100, it will become again much steeper. Okay. So as the number of items which you draw as samples increases, your standard deviation of the sample means will also be meaner. Okay, it will become more narrow. So if you see here, your standard deviation is actually lying in this range. In here, your standard deviation reduces. In here, your standard deviation reduces again. So it is becoming narrower and narrower. Right? Any question? I'll come back to this slide again to explain this. Okay. So what I'm trying to say is, say for example, I have a population whose graph looks like this, or whose distribution looks like this. Now, when I say I am taking out 10 numbers, I'm taking out 10 numbers. What I'm taking out is, say, 1, 2, 5, 6, 9, 8, 2, 3, 9, 8. So this is one time you are drawing, say, 10 numbers at a time. Okay, you calculated the mean. Say for example, the mean was, say, 6.5. Okay, again with the same experiment, you are drawing again 10 numbers. Okay, this time 2, 3, 8, 6, 5, and the mean comes out to be, say, 5.7. And you are repeating this for 50 times. 50 times. And when you draw this, the first time you will draw 6.5 somewhere around here, right? 6.5. Then you will draw 5.7, and so on. You will draw 50 times here. Okay, and this will actually be normally distributed. Okay, so the first central limit theorem says that the the x bar will be normally distributed. This was the first one. So the first one talks about the mean. The second one will basically talk about the standard deviation. Okay, so the second one says that the sampling distribution of sample means has a variance equals to 1 by n times the variance of the population, and the standard deviation equal to the population standard deviation divided by the square root of n. So we have to understand that whenever we are creating samples, right, we have created this using 10 numbers at a time, the mu the mean will be actually mu. Okay, it will be closer to the mean of this, and the standard deviation, as you can see here, the standard deviation will change to this. Okay, okay, so this was the first one and this is the second one. So the second one says that as your number of sample size increases, the standard deviation will become narrower. Okay, or your graph will become narrower because your standard deviation will reduce. Say for example, if I give you an example, so this is your population and this is your sample. For sample, we say mean as mu and standard deviation as okay. And for sample, we say it is x bar, and the standard deviation is, say for example, you can say sigma x bar or you can say s, okay, whatever it is. So from central limit theorem, what we conclude is, we conclude that the mean is going to be, okay, the mean is going to be mu, which is the same as the population, and the standard deviation, which is the sigma x bar, it's going to be sigma by root under of n, which is, if you remember, this is the standard error. Standard error of means.
N is the sample size here, right?
Yes, the sample size here. So n is the sample size. So for example, if you take sample size of 50, right? So it will become root under of 50. If you take a sample size of 10, it will become root under of 10. Okay, and n is the sample. And now we have to understand one thing: as and when the number of sample increases, okay, the standard deviation will actually reduce. Because if, say for example, if I have taken 4 samples, right? I have taken 4 samples. I have taken 4 samples, then it becomes sigma by root under of 4, which is 2, right? If I take 16 samples, it will become sigma by root under of 16, which is 4. Obviously, this is greater than sigma by 2 is greater than sigma by 4. For example, if sigma is say 10, so if I put in 10 here, so 10 by 2 is 5 and 10 by 4 is 2.5. So this sigma is greater. So as and when the number of sample increases, right, the number of sample increases, your standard deviation will actually reduce. Okay, that is why in here what you can see is, as and when the number of sample increases, as it increases from 10 to 50, it becomes more steeper because your standard deviation or the standard error here is actually reducing, right? Got my point? So this is your central limit theorem. Any question, any doubt? If someone says that I am not able to understand, that's okay, that's fine. Please do let me know. We will understand more about it when we go into the practical application using Python today. Okay. And even if after that you have any question, do let me know. We can have a discussion about it post our Python session. For now, if you have any question, use the chat window to ask question, or you can unmute yourself. I'm happy to take your answers, questions. So this is just the starting. If you have any doubt related, any technical aspect, like how will I calculate if the value is very big, or how do you get the standard deviation, right? So if that is part of, if it does not require much mathematical depth, then we will cover this in subsequent lectures. Or else what we can do is I can share materials with you. You can read through them if you have very good interest in advanced level of statistics. I hope you understand now that central limit theorem has two parts. One is that the distribution of the sample of mean will be approximately normal if the sample size is large, regardless of its original distribution. Okay, so the data will be normally distributed. The second aspect says that the sampling distribution of the sample means has a mean equal to population mean. So mu x bar is equals to mu, and the sample distribution of the sample means has a variance equals to 1 by n. Okay, variance is if 1 by n, then standard deviation will be the root of it, which is 1 by root n. So just understand one thing, that if you take a sample out of a population, the mean is going to be same, but the standard deviation is going to change to the standard deviation divided by the number of samples, which is root under of n. Okay, any doubt, any question? Use the chat window, or else we will solve some multiple choice questions. And still, if you have doubt or you are not able to calculate, we can probably calculate it one by one and all the doubts will be covered. Okay, let's look into the central limit theorem quiz. Okay, I have given enough time to answer these questions. If you have any doubt, to let me know. I'm sharing the Menti link over chat. I know it was a little theoretical. If someone has slept, please wake up. Okay. 6 people joining in. 7. We'll start when we have 11. 3 more folks, please wake up. 10. How can we convert random distribution to normal using CLT? Yes, we will look into it with the Python example. Okay, let's look into the Python example and then you will be able to visualize it, because at times theoretically explaining this concept is very difficult, or even if I was in your place, it would be very easy for me to absorb. So if we go through the practical aspect, we'll be able to understand. Okay, yeah, one more folk is remaining. Shall we start? Okay, good. Thank you. Which rule states that the distribution of sample means tend to become normal distribution when the sample size increases? We all went through it just now. Central limit theorem. Yes, central limit theorem says that as and when the number of sample size increases, it becomes more and more normally distributed, right? Okay, I think it should not be a problem. Law of normal distribution, no, we haven't learned anything about law of normal distribution, and there is nothing called normal distribution in our syllabus. Law of normal distribution, sorry. Over to the next one. Okay, good job, guys. Moving on to the next one. Be very attentive. The central limit theorem says that the standard deviation of the sampling distribution of the sample mean is standard deviation is equals to population standard deviation by root n, population standard deviation variance always 1? No, right? We have learned that the standard deviation, the standard deviation of a sampling distribution is always population standard deviation, which is sigma by root under of n. Okay, not the variance, not always 1. Let's look into the next one. Okay. Samples of size 100 are selected from a population with a mean of 150 and a standard deviation of 2.0. Find the mean and the standard deviation. We all know what is the mean of a sample distribution when we know the population distribution, and the standard deviation formula we just saw in the previous slide, right? Or the previous question, we need to just calculate it. Okay, only 3 people got the right answer. So the mean of a sample is going to be the same as the population. So the population mean was 150, right? So that's why it was 150. But the standard deviation is actually sigma by root n. So sigma is basically 2, right? 2 is the sigma of the population. Root under of n, the number of samples is 100. So 100 ka sample is, root is 10. So 2 divided by 10 is 0.2. So the answer is 150 and 0.2. Don't worry if you have got it wrong. I think the 30 seconds timer was a bit of an issue, but good job. 3 people have got the right answer, and I'm quite sure that next time all of you will get the right answer. Okay, over to the fourth one. Be very attentive, very easy question. The central limit theorem says that the mean of the sampling distribution of the sample means is. So the sample mean is equals to what of the population mean? Right, we have understood in the previous slides that the mean of the sample is always equals to the mean of the population, right? So exactly equal to the population mean. It is as per the central limit theorem. Okay, you have to make sure that you understand central limit theorem. Last question. Okay. Last question. Be very attentive. Sample size of 25 are selected from a population with mean 40 and standard deviation 7.5. The mean of the sampling distribution of the sample mean is. Please give right answer, everybody. The sample mean is 40, right? Because it is the population mean. So those who have given 7.5, 7.5 is the standard deviation. The standard deviation is never equals to the standard deviation of the population. Okay. Hope you all have got the gist of central limit theorem, and through these examples you were also able to understand how to calculate it, right? Any question, any doubt, please use the chat room to ask questions. Even if it is silly, don't worry. Okay, we all have been there. At least I have been there. Okay, good job, Sachin. And that's the end of our quiz. Any question, guys? Please let me know.
You said something regarding this, right? As and when the sample size increases, in the Menti quiz, it was there.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, could you just say that? I just wanted to make a note.
Sure. We'll just open the. Okay, was it there?
I think it was the first one.
Okay,
Okay,
yeah.
this one.
So which rule states that the normal distribution of sample means tend to become normal distribution when the sample size increases? So if you see this slide, what we mentioned here is, see, if your sample size is very less, probably 1 or 2, okay, here it is 10, but if you imagine if it is 1 or 2, it will never be a normal distribution, right? But it will tend to be a normal distribution. So as and when
Yeah.
your sample size increases, see, it becomes from 10 to 25 to 50. Okay, if I can. Make it a little big. Okay. So you can see that as in when it increases from 10 to 25 to 50, it actually becomes more and more normally distributed, right? So when I say normally distributed, it means it actually follows a bell curve. Here you can see that it is not actually following a bell curve, but it's trying to be a normal curve, right? But now as the size increases, so if you now change the sample size to 500, okay, it will become more steep. And the steeper it is, the more normally distributed it is, actually from a visual point of view.
Yeah, got
Understood?
it.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Any other questions, guys? Okay, so now we have concluded our boring theoretical part, and we will again regroup at 10:30, where we'll start more of the exciting part of Python. We will go very slow with Python because I know there are few folks who are non-technical, and there are few folks who are learning Python for the first time. So I will be very slow. Today we will go through central limit theorem and how we create graphs from NumPy arrays. Okay, will be very basic. We won't try to make it a complex matrix or something like that, but we'll try to create something which we are seeing here. Okay, right? You will get a data set which is not normally distributed, and then you change this to a normal distribution. Okay, so we'll regroup again at 10:30. I hope the pace of the session was okay for you. You have understand the gist of it. You have followed whatever I have said, and you were also able to solve the numericals. Even if you were not able to solve the numericals, I will share these Menti slides with you so that you can go through them. Okay, actually, this is part of making you able to crack any interview. So these are the types of questions they will probably ask you from basics of statistics, and you will get all these questions in a PDF format with questions and answers. Okay. Okay, guys, we'll regroup again at 10:30. We have 12 minutes of break. Thank you. If you have any question, do let me know over chat. I will try to answer it once I'm back. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Let's start with a new Python file. I would request all of you to follow along me. Ask me to go slow if I'm going fast. From next week onwards, we will try to be a little fast, but I'll make sure that everyone is understanding every concept. The concept building is very important. Python codes we can write using many techniques, but Yashwin is ready, so we can write Python codes using many techniques, but eventually the logic part is same for everyone. So I will focus more on the logics and then implementation over Python, because in interview, nobody will ask you how to implement the Python codes. They will probably ask you first with the implementation. And if you are okay with implementation, they might ask you some packages which you will use, and how will you use it using a or how will you create a graph using a list, or what type of libraries you will be using, right? So but eventually, if you are able to answer the basics of it and the theoretical part of it, you are through the interview, not to worry. At times we also don't remember the syntax, that's completely okay, and it depends on the day, right? Okay, let's start with the central limit theorem. So I will write. Okay, so before we start, we'll import some standard packages like import numpy as np. Please follow along me. Okay, import pandas as pd, right? And whatever required for visualization, can we use import matplotlib dot pyplot as plt, right? And yesterday also we imported cbond, so we'll import cbond as SMS. Okay, I'll run it. I hope there is no syntax error. Done. Now what we'll try to create is, we will try to initiate some random variables. Okay, random variables, say up to 50, or let's take up to 100, and we will take, for example, I'm giving a variable name as 1h, very absurd name, but let's see. You can give it whatever you want. Then we can initiate random int, should be rand int, right? And I will try to take values from 1 to 6. So I will give it 1 to 7 and 100. Okay, so what it will create is, it will create some variables for me, some data for me, right? So it created 100 data for me. See, n is equals to 100 here. So we have initiated 100 numbers, random integers. Okay, and it starts from 1 and ends at 6, 1 to 7. So 7 is basically n minus 1, right? So it will generate from 1 to 6. So it has generated, see, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then some 5, and then 6, not 7. Okay, to 1 to 6 with 100 numbers. Okay, so this is also a revision of your NumPy. If I want to just create a, say for example, a histogram out of it, so sns dot histplot, right? And then x is equals to your variable name. The variable name is 1h, and then I want to create some bins. So there are 1 to 6. So let me create 6 bins for you, right? So I'll just hit on. It says, okay, the wrong thing which I did is bins, right? Okay, bins is equals to 6. Now, if I want to see the plot, what should I do? Can someone tell me?
plt.show.
plt.show, right? Okay, any question? So you created a histogram using SNS and you want to show this to your end users. So you use plt.show. Yesterday also, we have done the same. See, it has created 6 bins for you. Bins as in the number of counts of 1 in the entire 100. The total number of integers are 100, right? So it has created ones, which is somewhere around 13, and 2, which is somewhere around 14, and 3, it's somewhere close to 27, and 4, which is somewhere around 20, 5, which is somewhere around 7, and 6, which is somewhere around 18. Okay, so all total number of counts is 100. Any question till now? Any question till now? We'll move on to the next section where we will, do something logical, right? Okay, let's do one thing. I think 100 is a very low number for a population. So let's copy this, right? And paste it over here. What I can do is I can generate somewhere around 1 million records. Okay. And for million records, we have to give some million. How many zeros are there in million? 100,000, 10,000, lakh, 10,000. Okay. Correct. Any question? I am generating 1 million records for you. Okay. I won't be showing this 100 million records here because it will create unnecessary, absurd visualizations, which doesn't make any sense. Okay. So if you want, you can print your 1 million record, not a problem. For now, I don't require this. Okay. So I'll just quickly run this. Okay. And now I want to plot this again. Please plot it on your own. Don't look at my screen. Plot it on your own. Please plot it on your own. If you have any question, do let me know. Right. Hope you were able to do that. If you're not able to do that, please look at my screen where I have plotted 1 million record for you in a histogram. Again, I have given pins is equals to 6 because it was easy for me to visualize 6 numbers into 6 bins, right? Now, if I ask you to create the mean of these numbers, what will you do? You will use NP because you are using an NP array, np.mean, and then your variable, right? Let's do it. So this creates, NumPy creates your mean, right? Previously we used statistics function, but now we will use the NumPy array. So you can see that the mean is 3.49873. Now, if you understand one thing, that these random integers are getting generated at random. So every time you click on this, your random number will be different. Okay. So for example, if I click on this again, okay, and if you visualize this or see this, it is going to change because it is randomly creating the data. See, it has changed. 146. The next time you see, this is again going to change. 252. So it is randomly generating 100 number for you. Likewise, if you are generating 1 million records, right, this is going to change, right? This is going to change, and your mean will also going to change. If I run it again, see, it has changed to 4982 now. I hope there is no question. If you have any question, unmute yourself, ask your question, or you can use the chat room.
Alankar, how to fix this randomness? Like seed.
You actually should not fix this randomness, because if you see from a very practical approach, whenever you go for a sampling distribution, you want to make sure that your sample is very diverse, right? So if you have a fixed set of list, like in the previous exercise which we did yesterday, you have a fixed list of 4 numbers or 5 numbers, that is fixed, but it should not be the right way, because every time you do a sampling, you have to make sure that your sample has randomness.
It's like if I want to save this number like for future also, like that
You can use
I think
for
so.
reproducibility.
so you can use a function called, a variable called random state.
Okay. Can you
Right?
show that
Everyone
how to use
I
that?
will tell you how to use it. Okay. So I will also give an example with random state. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that would be good for other folks also. Now, I will just continue with this. Those who are following along, if you have any question, do let me know. What I will try to do is, now I will try to transform this. Okay. Before mean, I will also try to create the standard deviation. The standard deviation is somewhere around 1.7. Okay. Now, let's reshape this to, for example, if I take a smaller number, say, and try to reshape it. So now what I am doing is, I have this array with me, 1 underscore h, right? It has 100 variables, but it is actually linear, right? Or it's a serial. But I want to convert this to a shape where I will say there are 25 rows and 4 columns. Okay. Once I hit on run, what you can see that it has changed from a serial, okay, to a shape where you have 25 columns and you have 25 rows and 4 columns. So the first value is row and the next value is column. So 25 rows in total. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 25, and 4 columns, 1, 2, 3, 4. Got it? You can do it for 1 underscore million also, but I want to show it, visually show it. So that's why I'm using 1 underscore h.
Hello, Alankar.
Yes.
I do have a doubt here. So, well, we were importing, yesterday we were importing from statistics, right?
Right.
So, yesterday we had this option called STDEV, and
Yeah.
for population and for other thing too, right? So, sample too, right? So, now in this NumPy, we only have this STD.
Yes,
So,
we have STD.
Yeah. Well, how to know it is for population or for the sample?
In general, with NumPy, we work with sample data.
Okay, so
okay,
it
so
denotes
for,
sample.
it's the standard deviation is sample only. So I will check for the population as well. I believe there was something. Okay, let me look into it.
Okay.
Okay, so for now, just understand this is the standard deviation. Okay, not population, not sample. So what we have created is standard deviation, and here we have reshaped the result to rows and columns. Okay, we have reshaped the result from rows to columns. Now, if we go by next, what we need to do is we want to find the mean of this, okay, for each of these line items. Each of these line items, I want to calculate the mean. for that, what I can do is let's write a function. Okay, so I will start with 1 underscore h, right? And then, okay, let me create a variable mean, and it is taking 4 variables at a time. So let's make it 4 is equals to 1 for h. Let's use the reshape. Keep it 25 and 4, and then we can do the mean, right? We can do the mean with axis equals to 1. Now, can someone tell me population standard deviation np.std 0,1, sample standard deviation np?
So
Okay.
that is the argument which is to be given for sample standard deviation. Otherwise, by default, it is taking population one.
Okay, good. Thank you for confirming. I will also look into it. Once I confirm, I will update the code. Now, I will tell you frankly that whenever you go into the industry, you will not be using Python for your statistical analysis, because there are a lot of tools which are available in statistical analysis. And for example, you have SPSS from IBM, which is one of the tools which we use for statistical analysis. And writing a lot of codes for in Python won't make our purpose, because we'll be writing like 10,000 lines of code every day. So it is better to use a software. So that's why we use a software, but it's also very much required to understand the background of how the softwares are calculating using different programming languages, right? So that's why I wanted to show you this about the standard deviation of sample and population. I will confirm it. Don't worry. So now what I have done is I have created the mean for each of these, right? Each of these line items. So I have done a reshape. Okay, 24 into 4, 24 comma 4, which is 100 items over here, and then mean by axis equals to 1. When I say axis equals to 1, it's actually taking this operation of row. Okay, so once I hit on mean, I try to print it, what you get is mean. You got my point? So the mean is 3.25 for the first one. For the second one, it is 4. See, if you calculate the mean for the first one, 2 plus 5, 7, 7 plus 2, 9, 7, 9, 13, and you divide it by 4, you will get somewhere around here, right? So it is calculating the mean for each of them. Now, let's try to plot this, okay? Before we plot it, can you create something like this for 1 underscore m, the million records? Please create the mean for 1 million records. I have created for 100 records. You have to only change one variable, right? You need to change only one variable. Okay, it is giving me an error that 1 million record cannot fit into 100, right? So you need to change this. Let's change this to 4, 25, 1 million. Okay, and run it. Yes, I'm not getting any error. Right, I will try to again plot the histogram. Let me copy a code because I'm lazy. Okay, any question, do let me know. Okay, X will actually be the mean because you want to show the mean, not the variables. I've changed the X to mean 4, which is actually calculated using the 1 million records. I've kept bins is equals to 6, not a problem. I want to show it with plot, right? So you are getting the result in a plot. So what it has done is it has calculated the mean for 1 million records for each of these rows. How many rows you will have in total? You have 25,000. No, 250,000 rows. And for that, it has distributed the mean. Now, if you any question before I proceed further, before I explain the results, someone not able to follow, do let me know. Right? Please write the code with me. Even if it takes 2 minutes of time, do let me know. I will stop here. Any questions, guys? Gurpreet, you have any question? Hari? Mayank, all good?
Clear. Yeah.
Yeah, all
Okay,
good.
coding side by side, very good. Okay, so 100, I have reshaped it to 25 into 4 because there are 100 records, right? There are 100 records. And now I reshaped it and calculated the mean for each of these particular rows. Okay, I have calculated the mean for each of these rows. So if you want to check, you can calculate this 3 plus 3, 6, 6 plus 10, 16, 16 divided by 4, which is 4. So you have 4. If you want to check this, 8 plus 3, 13, 13 divided, sorry, 8 plus 3, 11, 11 divided by 4 is 2.25. Okay, so the mean 25 means are present here. Now I asked you to calculate the same thing for 1 million records. So what you have done is 250,000 into 4, which is 1 million record. And you are calculating the mean again for each of these rows, right? Each of these rows, you are calculating for each of these rows. Now, I want to show you the results in a histogram. So what I have done is instead of passing 1 million, right, I have passed the mean. Now, if you remember central limit theorem, the first theorem says that if you calculate the mean for each of your sample, what you have done here, you have taken 4 samples at a time and you have taken 25 times, right? You have taken 25 times. So it means that if I go to a slide, right? If you have 100 items here, what you have done, you have basically divided this into 25 into 4. You are taking 4 samples every time. You are taking 4 samples every time. Every time you are taking 4 samples. How many times? 25 times. I hope this is clear using Python. You have taken 4 samples at a time and doing this for 25 times. And every time you are calculating the mean. The mean is X bar. You are calculating the mean, which is X bar. So X1 bar, X2 bar, and so on. So last one will be X25 bar. Right? Now, this mean, you are trying to plot it over a graph. Okay? And this mean will basically give you a normal distribution. If I go back to my Jupyter notebook, right? And if I show you the mean, you see it is actually following a normal distribution. But your original distribution was not normal distributed. It was a more or less a uniform distribution, right? Understood? Any question? If you have any question, do let me know. Right? You have plotted this. So this is a normal distribution. So the first part is done. Now, if I do NP dot mean, right, and then I pass mean of 4, NP dot mean, and I am passing mean of 4. It means I am passing the sample mean. I am passing the sample mean from the 1 million records. So I am passing 250,000 means and trying to calculate the mean. If you see this mean and the previous mean which we calculated for 1 million record is similar, 3.498252, right? 8252. Any question? So the first rule of or inference of central limit theorem says that the mean will be equal from the population and the sample. The sample is this mean 4. This is the sample which you have created. This is for the 100 records, but likewise, it would have been created for 1 million records, right? Similarly, if you do a standard deviation, what will happen? Anyone tell me? Is it going to be the same?
No.
No, what?
It would be
Root
sigma
10.
by root n.
Yes. So if I just copy this, right? If I just copy this and I do a STD, it will give you a standard deviation which is less, right? It is less. Why it is less? Because where is the previous standard deviation? It is 1.70668 and it is less because the standard deviation changed to sigma by root under of n. What is the n here? Can someone tell me what is the n here?
And if 250, 100.
250,000. Okay, 250,000. Any question?
N is 4 na, right? Because it's sample size, not number of samples.
N is 1 second.
It will be 2 then.
Yes, it is n. I'm very sorry. It is n. N is 4. Okay, so root under of 4, which is going to be divided by 2. So we basically divided this value with 2. So 1.7 divided by 2 is 0.87. 25,000, 250, 100 is actually the number of random drawn, right? The number of time you have drawn 4 samples. Okay, thank you for correcting. Any question you have, do let me know. Any question. So if anyone has not understood, I will just quickly take 1 minute of time. Okay, so the population, we calculated the mean, which is mu, and we calculated the standard deviation, which is sigma, for the sample, and it has, say, for example, 100 records. And for the sample, what we did is we divided it into 25 into 4. So we are taking 4 data at a time for 25 times. So my mean, which is x bar, is going to be equals to mu, which we have solved using Python. And the standard deviation, which is, say, sigma x bar, is going to be sigma by root under of n. So now if the sigma, for example, here was 4, for example, say it would have been 4 divided by root under of n, the number of samples we are drawing every time. So it is 4, it is going to be 4 by 2, which is, okay. So as you can see, as the number of sample size increases, your standard deviation will go down. Okay, this is what we can see in here. Now this is an example of a unimodal data. What is a unimodal data? Anyone can tell me?
Has only one mode.
Yeah, it has only one peak. Okay, it has only one peak. So there is no 2 peaks here. If I want to do this with a bimodal data, right, it might happen that you have created a, you have a data. So unimodal is something like this. You have this, right? You have this. It might be something like this. If you draw it over histogram, it is a unimodal because it has only one peak, only one. If you have a bimodal, what you'll see, you will have, you have 2 peaks. Say for example, here is also a peak. Is also a peak. So you have one peak here and one peak here. Okay. Now let's do it for a bimodal data. How can we start with a bimodal data? Let's create 2 more variables. I will. Okay, so follow along me. Before this, if you have any question, do let me know. Even if you have not understood anything, do let me know. If you're not able to follow along, do let me know.
Like Alankar, I am not getting matlab, exact equality of like standard deviation, like divide by 2. Not exactly, it is not equal, but fine. I think it must be a precision, some error at the backend in Python.
No, it's actually, so it is actually not entirely equal divided by 2, but it also takes some calculation in the background. Even in statistics, you will get this some sort of 0.000 error, but that's negligible.
Yes. Okay.
So let's start with bimodal. So if we want to create 2 bimodal data, what we need to create is, we need to create first 2 peaks, right? You need to have 2 peaks for bimodal. Let's start with a variable a is equals to np dot random, right? As you have done earlier, random dot normal. So I'm using a normal distribution now. Okay, we'll see how it makes sense. So in total, so when I use a normal, it means that your mean is 100 and your standard deviation is 5. Okay, and you are plotting for 1000 data points. So normal argument is first is mean is equals to 100, standard deviation is going to be 5, and the total number of items is 1000. Okay, it will randomly generate 1000 items for you with mean is equals to 100 and standard deviation is equals to 5. Okay, let's run this. Please follow with me and create another model. Okay, with say for example mean 80 and 5 as the standard deviation and 1000 records, and I will name it B. Hope you are able to follow with me. Right? So I will also run this B for you. If you want to see how A looks like, you can basically have a look at A and B on your own. I'm not going to see it. Now I want to append both these data together. Okay, so what I can do, I can create a variable, say bimodal data, and I need to append it. So let's use append function. So in here, you are also revising your NumPy classes A, comma, B. Okay, so you have created your bi-model data. I'll quickly run it. No error. Now I want to randomize this and shuffle it. Okay, so np dot random dot say shuffle. Okay, and I will try to pass on this value, which is this data. Okay, and if I hit on run, it is running without any issue. Now I want to create a distribution plot, not a histogram. Okay, because I have mixed two data points. So let's create a distribution plot. So SNS dot, just like you create a hist plot, you create a dis plot, right? I'm going very slow, bm underscore data, because that's my data. Okay, and I will use ELT dot show, and that's it. See, you are getting two bimodal data, one with a mean of 100 and one with a mean of 80. Any question? Follow along me. I am giving you 2 minutes. Those who are not able to run, if you are getting any error, so in total you have 2000 data points. You understand, right? First you have 1000 data point. Second you have 1000 data point. What I am doing, I am appending both of them together and shuffling them just to create a randomness in the data. Okay. If I don't create a randomness, then it's of no use for me in statistics. So I am shuffling it to create a randomness in the data. And then I am creating a distribution plot just to show you how the distribution looks like. I'm not creating a histogram because this is actually a normal distribution. Okay.
Alankar, in this displot method, the kind is by default hist. So this will plot histogram only, I guess.
Yes, that's right. It will create histogram without any second thought. But we are using displot because just wanted to show how the distribution looks like. Because you might get confused when I use distribution plot again in the next code, right? But that's a good point. It actually uses a histogram in the background. And when I use a displot, if I can do one more thing, I can also show you this. So I can limit this to, say, for example, 60 to 120. Okay, so it will not give me data which is less than 60, and I can limit it. Okay, maybe I shall do something like 60.
We'll need to show again, I guess.
20.show. Yeah, thanks. So it is 60. I could have easily passed this into parameter, not a problem. So when I show plt.show with a limiter of 60, 120, it basically limits from 60 to 120. Okay, but if you don't want, you can just comment, run this, and give you from 0 to up until the last. Doesn't matter. Okay, so this is the population data for you. It has total 2000 data with bimodal peaks, okay, or two peaks, one with a mean of 80 and the other with a mean of 100. Standard deviation here is 5 in both the case. Any question, do let me know. Okay, So just like we had a data set here, which was entirely unimodal, okay, now we have a bimodal data set. And we'll do the similar operation on this bimodal data set. So what we'll do, first we'll try to find out the mean, right, from the random data. So let's do one thing. Let's create a variable which basically stores all the mean for 2000 data points. So let's start with bimodal2. You can name whatever variable you want. I can use my data set, which is bm underscore data, and then reshape. If you remember, this is the same code. You can copy paste it, comma 2. We have 2000 data, right? And then we have mean. This equals to 1. Okay, so it creates a huge pool of data for you with the mean. Some mean are 1080, some are 103, some are 92, right? Some are 878. So let's try to plot this SNS dot distribution plot bm underscore 2. Okay. Then plt dot show. The same set of operation I'm performing again, right? Now you see the mean of this bimodal data set is actually a normal distribution. If I create a bell curve, it's actually fitting your data set. Okay, please follow along. Any question, do let me know. Can someone answer what is the sample size here, which I am taking every time?
2.
2 is the sample size. Okay, can I increase my sample size just to check? Right, let's explore. Okay, I am creating with 4 variables, say for example, 4 sample each time. And for that, I need to change this to how much? 500, because we have 2000 data set in total. So 500 is into 4 is 2000. And here also we did 1000 into 2, which is 2000. Okay. And then I want to do the same thing here. I'll copy because I'm lazy. I will do it bm underscore 4 and then plt dot show right. You see, as I increase the number of sample size, the model is getting more and more normal. If you compare these two models, this is more normal than this. This distribution is more normal than this. Can someone do this for, let's say, example 10, number of sample 10? It will become more normal, right? So this will be 200. This will be 10. This will be 10. This will again be 10. Yeah, right. Yes. Right. So, see, it is getting more normal. Okay. Hope you have got the idea how to do it for a uni model and a bi model data set.
Alankar, I'm getting doubt here. Like
Yeah.
when I'm calculating standard deviation for BM underscore for those two different data sets, where we are thinking, because as we increase sample size, standard
Mhm.
deviation should decrease.
Mhm.
The standard deviation which is coming after calculation is not less.
So what was your initial sample deviation? Population standard deviation?
Like if we compare standard deviations of that two samples, BM underscore 2 and BM underscore 4,
Uh-huh.
BM underscore 2 and BM underscore 4.
BM underscore, let me do it for you. np.std. Tell me if I'm wrong. You want to do it for BM underscore
2
2.
and BM underscore 4, I think you have
BM underscore 4. Now why it is happening? Can anyone answer this?
For BM2, the population population standard deviation was divided by 1, but for
Mhm.
BM underscore 4, it was divided by 2.
Yes, but he wants to say that the original data set, right? The original data set has a standard deviation of 5. Now, ideally, it should be less than 5, but why it is 7?
Right.
Sample standard deviation.
I think your
Right.
answer is correct only. I am getting wrong in my Python. I think I have done something wrong, but you are getting correct.
No, I am telling you, I will tell you one thing. So once you have appended the data, you have what you have done, you have shuffled it, right?
Mhm.
And your final data is the append data, which is BM underscore data. So if I try to find the standard deviation of BM underscore data, what is the standard deviation? Let's see. The standard deviation is 11. Why it is 11? Because you are joining two different plots with standard deviation 5 and another standard deviation of 5. So the resultant standard deviation is going to be somewhere around 11. Okay. Now, when you have two samples, your standard deviation comes to 7 point something, obviously, because it is getting divided by root under of 2, which is 1.1, 1.21 or something, right? And when you are dividing the exact value by root under of 4, it is getting divided by 2, which is 11.14 divided by 2, which is coming somewhere around 5.33.
Yes.
Again, some plus minus error.
Yes, I think I have done something wrong in my calculation.
Right. Anyone has any question? Went very slow, a lot of graphs, a lot of plot, but let me know if you understood the central tendency from a Python perspective. So what I tried to show here is the mean is going to be the same. The mean is going to be the same whether you take unimodel or bimodel data, any distribution. When you do a sampling on top of it, right, mean is going to be the same, but your standard deviation will reduce by root under of n. N is the sample size. Any question from any of the participants? Harini, you okay?
Yeah.
Okay,
No doubt, sir.
no doubts, right? So I went very slow. Okay, Ashwin, thank you. I went very slow just to make you comfortable with the concept of statistics. Statistics is very boring, believe me. Even I am saying it is very boring, but we have to make it more interactive through Menti, through Python, and a mix of, theory. So we'll try to ideally make it 45 minutes of theory classes, followed by at least 50 to 1 hour of Python classes, because you understand the nitty-gritty behind it. And one more thing I want to tell you is, as we go deeper into statistics, we will come into advanced topics. Next day, we are going to start with hypothesis testing. And I will give you a sample where how to calculate the hypothesis testing, how to infer whether to take the data or not to take the data, right? We will look into different confusion matrices. We call it type 1, type 2 errors, everything. So we'll start with his hypothesis testing next. Try to build it slowly. We will dedicate at least 20 to 24 hours with statistics, because it's very important for machine learning perspective. Because when I will teach you machine learning, I will come back to these statistical concepts again and again. And at that time, you'll be also able to understand how statistics is very closely related to machine learning, right? How different fields of or industry or domain is using statistics. In which cases statistics is more required, where it is not required much, right? Like for examples where you are working with a lot of textual data, our industry analysis is that statistics plays a very important role to create the hypothesis, but it is not required much, as compared to if you are creating any predictive model for, for a sales company, or you are working for a advertisement company where they want to forecast, should I spend more on this based on what revenue I am getting on a particular product. So this is what we will understand from a marketing perspective, and how the entire life cycle of statistics goes on, where you will fit in. Say for example, if you become a data engineer, whether it is required, how much percentage is required for you. If you become a data scientist, how much percentage of statistics is required for you. If you become a product manager, it is very much important to understand the statistical concepts, because you are the one who will derive the entire product. You will come with the accuracy level saying that our model should have at least 85% accuracy. And if a data scientist gives you a solution with 82% accuracy, you have to straight away reject that. So this is how you have to understand how the entire life cycle of a machine learning product works. We will also go through statistical concepts of inferential statistics, as well as we will try to picturize it with real world scenarios. For example, if you go to a so from next week onwards, probably from Sunday onwards, not Saturday. Saturday will take similar type of session. From Sunday onwards, we'll have a breakout session where I will break your team into smaller groups of 3 or 4, probably 3 groups or 4 groups, and I will give you some business problem. And each or one of you have to give some input, like how should I solve this? Okay, so this will give you more interaction with each other, and also you'll be able to use your brain to solve these real world cases. Okay, any question you have before we close the session today? I know this is very theoretical, but I am trying to make it more interactive using Menti and Python, and hopefully we'll continue the same in the next few months. If you have any question, do let me know. Drop me a chat over WhatsApp, connect me over LinkedIn, or we can connect one-on-one if you have any question. If you are shying away from asking question, do drop me a text message. There's no question to be asked. Okay, so we are good with today. We learned what is central tendency, central limit theorem, and we implemented that over Python. Next class, it's going to be fun with hypothesis testing. We will create some hypothesis and test whether to reject or accept this hypothesis. Okay, thank you guys. Have a great weekday ahead with a lot of challenging work, but not extending more than 8 hours of your work. Okay, thank you guys.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you,
you.
Namaskar.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.